to Encounter Life. I am Kurt Richey, your host. Today is a very special day for those of you that are loyal listeners to this podcast. For those of you that are longtime friends, you all are going to quickly understand just how special this episode truly is. For over 40 years, my wife Joni has been very shy about getting close to a microphone. She has served the Lord all these years, most of the time very quietly taking care of a million details and planning, making sure that I am where I need to be, when I need to be there, and that my clothes and the color of my clothes don't clash. I can't imagine what my ministry would have been like without her at my side. But today, this is going to be so much fun. Joni is with me for this episode that we are calling Marriage Beyond 50 Years. This past week, we celebrated 51 years of marriage, and today, together, we are going to talk about what we have learned after all these years. Folks, we are not perfect, but I am sure we are perfect for each other. If you want to get an inside look at what long-term marriage looks like, stick around for the next few minutes. Laugh with us, laugh at us, who knows? You may just cry with us. Most of all, I hope you will pray for us. Okay, sweetheart, are you ready for this? Let's talk about our 51 years of marriage.
Good morning. Actually, that sounds kind of scary, but here we go.
I asked you ahead of this to be prepared with your top 3 pieces of advice. If someone were to ask, how did you do it? And please be kind to me in this. I am really nervous. If someone were to ask, how did you make it for 51 years with that man you're married to? Let's start with your number 1 answer.
Laugh. Just be sure to laugh. Laugh at things, laugh with him, laugh at things silly that he does and things silly that I do. Just have a sense of humor.
Have a sense of humor. The problem with that, Joni, is that 51 years, I think you've heard all of my jokes probably 5 or 10 or 15 times.
50 times.
50 times. How do you manage that when it gets repetitive?
Sometimes I just kind of have to have you talking, but I'm not really listening.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. You're supposed to listen at all times. I'm going to need a new joke list. I'm going to create a new set list.
That would be nice.
That would be nice, she says. Well, my number 1 is, and I agree with you, I do. You have to keep a sense of humor at all times. And if I can kind of push that a little bit before I get to my number 1, marriage could be, because it is what it is, you gotta keep a sense of humor at moments when maybe you shouldn't even laugh. Some of those private moments, and you think, wow, that, in any other situation, I probably shouldn't laugh, but we can laugh at each other.
Amen.
When it gets weird. I guess I'll leave it at that. My number 1 is there is no exit. And let me explain. From my experience speaking with young couples over the years before they're married, most, if not all, begin marriage with known, identifiable exits. I will ask them, what would it take to end this? And I'll ask them before they ever start. Because I want them to think about this idea, and it gives me a chance then to speak with them about it. I ask them, and interestingly enough, they tell me, if my spouse does this, and you can fill in the blank, I will be done. I won't live with a person that does fill in the blank again. I'm always surprised at that. Before we even begin, we're already planning the exit. What I'm about to say is my own opinion, my own conviction about marriage. I have a lot of friends who I love with all of my heart that may not share the same belief, and that's okay. This is just my opinion. And I don't ask anyone else to agree with me in this matter, but I do not believe in marriage with exit ramps. I can hear you. Some of you are thinking you're shouting at your radio or at your computer. What if your spouse did this? What about that? You would think differently if this happened, fill in the blank. I hear you. However, I can honestly say many years ago, and I'd like to, I'm a bit embarrassed to admit this, I'd like to say it happened on October 6th, 1974, but yeah, I guess I did at that moment, but something happened in those earlier years that in my head and heart, as I began to experience marriage, I crossed an invisible threshold in my head and heart. And now, each day when I wake up, I will live this day married to Joni, based not upon feelings about what is going on in our relationship or the circumstances of our lives or the circumstances at work or in ministry. None of those things matter. I will live married to Joni because of a decision I made many years ago. A decision that I'm not even, again, fully aware of how and when it occurred. I just very early on realized that a choice that I made 51 years ago will carry me the distance. And options for me to do otherwise simply do not exist. And I have to admit, there's probably, and this may seem awkward, but I have to know in my heart there may have been days in our marriage where me getting out of bed made you mad. You'd have just been happier had I just stayed in bed and just let you go do what you do and just disappear. But I'm not that. I'm even on the days when it seems difficult, I'm still going to get out of bed. I'm going to keep moving on, and I'm going to get past whatever it is. People may think that this is hard to understand, and well, I agree. I don't know that I fully understand it. I struggle, as you can tell right now, I struggle to explain it. But my circumstances, my feelings, none of it matters. It's not about how I feel. It's not about my circumstances. It's about a decision. I will wake up tomorrow, Joni at my side, and I will be married. I want to tell a little story that occurred some years ago. Joni had, I don't know how many years ago did you have your LASIK surgery?
I believe it was in 2002.
In 2002, Joni had this, and back then it was kind of a new thing, and it was a big deal. But she was legally blind without having her eyes being corrected. Her when they tested her vision was 2800 without correction, and had been that way for decades. And on our last visit with the doctor that was going to do this high tech brand new surgery, that if it was going to do everything he said it was going to do, she was going to be able to see. And we were on that last visit prior to the procedure, and we were checking out at the front desk and signing all the paperwork. And the doctor was standing right beside me. And his particular office, his program was that everything you would need from start to finish was all covered under one fee instead of being a la carte. I heard there was a doctor who did this procedure in Windsor, Canada, and he charged per eye. I always thought that a bit strange. It would seem like if you needed it, you was going to need it in both eyes. But this particular doctor in Detroit, south of Detroit, it was a package deal, and it was from start to finish, whatever was needed, even in follow-up care, prescriptions, whatever it would be. And he was proud of that. It was a selling point for him. And he was going down through the list. And he said, "No, Mr. Richey, do you understand?" And I said, "Well, I like that idea very much, that, this one fee covers everything that may arise. But I said, I'm a little nervous because there's something that's missing." And he says, "Missing? What could possibly be missing?" And I said, "Well, if this surgery is going to do everything that you claim it will do, and I'm confident it will, I think it's going to work, obviously. But if it works as well as you say, we're going to need marriage counseling, and that's not in your list of things you'll cover." And he said, "Marriage counseling? Nobody's ever asked me about that. Why would you need marriage counseling?" Because if it works as well as you said it's going to work, I said, we're going to be, Joni's going to wake up on the first day after this surgery, and she's going to open her eyes, and she's going to see what she's been sleeping next to for the last 35 or 40 years, whatever it was. And I'm pretty sure we're going to need some marriage counseling.
Only my husband would think of that.
I figured it was going to be a problem. I'm glad that when you finally saw the reality that our marriage has continued several years beyond that.
Run for the hills.
You didn't run for the hills. I'm grateful. Joni, what is your number 2?
Forgive.
Ooh.
Be quick to forgive. It doesn't do any good for you personally if you hold grudges. It doesn't hurt your spouse. It hurts you. So just as quickly as you can, forgive and move on, and know that you make mistakes as well, that you want to be forgiven for as well.
Yeah, forgiveness is key. And that doesn't just help in a marriage relationship. I think isn't that in the Bible someplace?
I believe it is.
I think it's a spiritual principle that we apply. And it's a forgiveness that is the kind of forgiveness that we see Jesus talking about and demonstrating and teaching. Forgiveness with a hook is not forgiveness.
No.
It's not, I'll forgive you, but there is no add-on to that. Forgiveness is real. Well, the problem with forgiveness is that we have a capacity to remember. And that, I think, forgiveness might be way easier if we didn't have that memory. We have to battle that.
That's true.
What's your thoughts, Annie?
You do remember, but again, you can't dwell on it. You can't harbor it as a grudge, because that just destroys you. You just have to forgive the same way you want to be forgiven.
I think one of the hidden features there in that thought is that because we can remember, we have this hidden expectation that, well, I forgive you, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if you do it again. And that can, I think, in a very real spiritual way, enslave a person. If we harbor that, well, I forgive you, but I know going in, I'm going to have to forgive you dozens of times because, you're failed, and just because I forgive you doesn't fix anything. I think there's that argument that we have to deal with, that forgiveness in the midst of remembering, we can't enslave the person to a cycle of repetition. And then when it happens a second, third time, the same situation, I knew it was going to happen. And that's how that continues on. We got to free ourselves of that. My number 2 is really simple. Keep on dancing. Just keep on dancing. And obviously, what I mean by that is life doesn't always play the right music. We have to listen for the music, whatever it may be, whatever the rhythm of life, the music of life, and the rhythm of life may be at that very moment. And we have to dance. I remember your mom suffered so terribly with crippling pain in her knees. And when I would help her get up and I would hold her in my arms, and I'd be almost 100% weight bearing, I would hold her under her arms and get her up and try to slowly let her adjust to the pain of being upright, standing upright. And she would whisper, nobody in the room could hear. And she'd put her lips right to my ear and she would cry out, "Oh God, oh God." And I would whisper back to her and I'd say, "Pat, I'm going to hold you and we're going to dance for a minute. We're just going to hold each other and dance." And I would frame it like that, and we would begin to sway just ever so subtly, slightly. We'd just begin to sway and allow for the weight to begin to reach her knees, and she'd cry out and continue until she finally could bear it, and then we'd begin to move. And there was a dance, a very private, loving, close dance, and there was no music playing, but you had to listen for it, and you had to figure out what was the dance for this moment. Keep on dancing. And I think that that's a big deal in marriage. Grab your partner, hold them close, and dance. Sweetheart, what moment in the last 51 years do you look back upon and think, I was really glad that I was married? You could probably offer 50 times when you thought, oh, what have I done? But I want the few times that in 51 years, and you look back and think, I'm really glad I was married at this particular moment in time. What are some of those?
I could name dozens. There's times of special events when you're so glad that you have your spouse, when your children are born, when your children get married, when they have their babies. There's just lots of special times like that when you're so glad that you are married and have your spouse. But then also in the troublesome times, when I was going to the hospital to have gallbladder surgery, I was sure thankful to not be alone and to have him by my side. Both times when my dad passed away and then when my mom passed away. So thankful to have a husband that cared and would just hold me and comfort me. So there's good times and there's bad times that happen in your life when you're very happy that you're married.
I can honestly say that those moments when I've really been glad I was married, sometimes, just as you've noted, those moments have been happy, special, intimate celebrations, sometimes public celebrations, sometimes more intimate celebrations. Other times, they have been moments of great pain and struggle and fear. At the extremes of life's experiences, good or bad, my gladness in having someone in my life to share in those moments, those are the best. And I know it may be hard to believe this, but there are things that you do that would be an annoyance for some men.
No.
Things like helping me drive the car.
Don't all women help their husbands drive?
There is a very popular reel on Instagram that shows a couple in a car, and usually the camera is focused on the woman, and the man is talking about his little helper in the car. I've got a little helper in the car. It's really very funny. I've sent it to you. You've seen it. Well, this is what I believe. I would rather have my little helper in the car than be alone.
Oh, I may have to remind him of that sometimes.
I knew I was going to regret this. I'm glad that I have someone to share life with. Even when that someone is my little helper in the car. I think now at this point in our life at 51 years and retired and semi-retired, I guess we'll call ourselves, and living in the villages, and of an evening when I say, Joni, let's go for a ride. And I put the top down on the Mustang and we just cruise around the squares. We listen to the music. And if there's an empty spot to park the car, we pull in and just sit there and listen. And then we pull away and we, drive away. and to have you with me in those moments. I appreciate having my little helper in the car. What is your number 3?
Well, my number 3, it's taken me a while to learn it, but just know when to be quiet. Sometimes it's not best to just continue driving at your point and trying to convince them that they're wrong and you're right. Sometimes it is best to just be quiet. Know when to bite your tongue and just let things move on, rather than thinking that you have to just say every little thought that you have, because you need to have those thoughts and then you need to decide, do I really need to verbalize this thought?
This is something that has been hard for me over the years, but I think we have to be, and in response to what you're saying, this idea of having this need to be quiet. Well, sometimes I don't want you to be quiet. I want it to keep going. I want to hear and I want to fix it, and I can't fix it if you're quiet. And then there's other times when I think I wish you'd be quiet. and that tug and pull of needing that I think we need to be okay with allowing our partner this time, this needing to be alone, not for days at a time. That's going to be a problem. But everyone, you, me, everyone needs to be able to be alone, just by yourself, to think, to process, to pray, to spend time with the Lord, just to be alone. Talk to me for a moment about this needing to be alone. How do you feel? What's your thought process there?
I think there are times when you just need to maybe just walk away, go in the other room, just calm your thoughts, maybe read a book for a little bit, pray. Just pray, Lord, calm me, help me not to overreact to things. And if we could just get alone for a few minutes, we can accomplish that and make the situation so much better.
I'm going to interrupt you we were just talking about how much I enjoy having you riding shotgun with the top down and cruising around the squares and how much fun that is. But I will tell you that there are times when, for me, my alone space sometimes is the car. Just to be able, and it doesn't mean anger. It doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It just means that I need a little time to just be out on the highway for a few minutes, and it does help. And I appreciate, thank you, and maybe we haven't said this often enough in 51 years, but thank you for allowing me some space at times to, I need to be alone.
We all need that.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I want to shift this a bit. Long-term marriage, I believe, is a lot like long-term investing. And I'm not giving investment advice here. I'm talking about marriage. But in the beginning, for a person who has, some of our listeners will have maybe just begun doing some serious, routine, regular investing and investing for the future. And I'm of course talking about finances. In the beginning, it's hard. A person might not even think it's necessary to make those deposits in marriage of commitment, forgiveness, love, laughter, loyalty, just as in the beginning of financially investing, we make those investments of money and there's a million things that we'd like. Now we've got a few bucks and we'd like to spend those few dollars and instead of putting them away and investing them so that they will grow and be there later. Well, the same idea is true in marriage, and we make deposits early on, commitment, forgiveness, love, laughter, loyalty. Years ago, I wrote an article about getting several toasters as wedding gifts. Now, this was 51 years ago. Gifts at a wedding were really handled very differently than they are, I think, today. But I remember, and I don't remember the exact number, but I think we got like 5 toasters. And there was a routine of taking them back and exchanging them for something else. We didn't need 5. When you're first married, you don't need 5 toasters. It's just the 2 of us. We just need one of those 2-slice toasters and we're done. And that's going to last us forever, right? But we didn't do that. And it wasn't by a deliberate intention. We just never returned them. And we kept them in their little box. It didn't take much room to store them. And we put them, I remember, in the top shelf of a closet. Well, it turned out that was a really good decision, because what we learned over time was that toasters break, and you're going to need a new one. You're going to need to replace it again with another toaster. And I think that sometimes it's like that in marriage. In the beginning, we have this big investment of quantity of love and passion, and some might look at a newly married couple and say, "Oh, you guys are just, stop it. You're just too crazy in love." Well, it's okay. You need to start with a bunch of that.
Yes.
Because over time, things break and get damaged, and you're going to need to refresh that supply of love. You're going to have to go to the closet. You're going to have to pull out another toaster, and you're going to have to say, if we expect to have toast, we're going to have another toaster. And it's that new beginning and 100 new beginnings in a marriage, that sometimes things get broken and we have to repair and replace. And I don't mean with, obviously not the weird. A person could take my illustration to an extreme. I'm not talking about replacing the person. I'm talking about replenishing and replacing love that is broken and needs a fresh package opened up, and we're going to continue to love. We're going to continue to have toast. What we don't understand or realize, I think, in the beginning years is that those deposits are growing. They are compounding interest, and it's increasing the size of our marriage account. And as the years accumulate, the size of the account ends up being far greater than the sum of the individual deposits. One day you wake up and you're going to need to make a withdrawal. And it'll be at that moment you discover you have, over the years, amassed a fortune. And when you need it most, it'll be there. What you need most will be available in greater measure than you ever could have imagined. Friends, Joni and I have experienced this. And I want you to know, all those days, getting up and living together, even when it seemed hard, even when it seemed like quitting could have maybe been easier, all of those days will have created a fortune, a relationship fortune. And there is no fast track for this process. But I promise you, you'll be glad you lived your life committed to one person, your forever person. Joni, I will admit that I'm a bit nervous about this next idea and that I'd like to explore, but anyone can do the math. If a couple has been married over 50 years, there is an immediate calculation that takes place about our ages.
Oh, boy.
The truth is, we are both the same age, even though you're older than I am. We're both the same age.
There he goes again.
And we were very young when we got married. So we have to be hovering close to the 70-year-old mark. I would like to hear your thoughts about being married at our age. You and I have talked recently about this. When I was 20 years old, 18 years old, I never gave any thought whatsoever to the idea of being married when I was 70. Today, that in about 9 months will be the reality for me. What are your thoughts about being married at our age?
It's wonderful. You know each other. You know each other's habits. You know each other's likes and dislikes. You even know each other's little buttons to push that maybe you shouldn't push those buttons.
Wow, we could do a whole episode on that.
But we're not going to. No, being married at this age is wonderful. You're thankful to not be alone. You're thankful to have someone to share the good times with, someone to share the scary times with. You're just thankful to have someone with you and to not be alone.
Yeah, we gotta go back. I can't finish yet. That idea of pushing buttons, I think that one of the real signs of love and maturity and longevity in a marriage, you sure do know the buttons. And I know them too. But I believe that it is really important that we mature in our love and our marriage enough that when we're upset, we don't push buttons.
That's completely true. Absolutely.
Really unfair.
It is.
It's so unfair and unnecessary.
And we know better.
And we know better. Thank you. Yes, we know better. And it's so that the pushing buttons, it's so selfish. It really is, because we think we win, that if we can push that button and get a reaction, and then it's such a self-defeating, self-righteous position and thing to do. And I'm sorry for pushing buttons. It's unfair. And I think we could, both of us, agree that it's an unfair practice.
Yes, it is.
And it needs to be avoided.
Amen.
Joni, I want to thank you for doing what I know is uncomfortable for you. We finished this conversation on maybe a downside of pushing buttons. Any final word of encouragement, just something, a last concluding thought before we finish, just a highlight?
Love one another, talk to one another, communicate. Don't keep things inside, but communicate. Pray together, read the Bible together, make your spiritual walk a part of your everyday life, and don't neglect the Lord, and don't neglect each other.
Yeah. Excellent. I know that our listeners appreciate your willingness to sit here with a microphone in front of you and talk about our lives, and I know that they already love you. I know that they really appreciate your willingness to share your thoughts about love and long-term marriage. It has been fun, friends. Thanks for listening today. Hopefully, you have been encouraged and inspired. I am so grateful to all of you that are making Encounter Life successful. Our numbers are really good. The metrics are really good. And it's because of you, your willingness to continue to share this podcast with your friends, and those details about podcasting that matter. They really do, and help us continue to encourage an increasing a larger audience with each passing month. Thank you for all of that. Please let us know your thoughts or any questions you may have. You can always reach us at encounterstudiosfl@gmail.com. Let me repeat it: encounterstudiosfl@gmail.com. And remember, one encounter with Jesus can change everything.